Okay, so we have to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 361 because oh my goodness, this chapter is just so amazing. And every time I reread this chapter, it just makes me admire Shigaraki so much so because he frankly is turning out to be the best character in all of My Hero Academia, and I think that he will be when all is said and done. Because honestly, contrary to what many people will believe, this might be the most important chapter in My Hero Academia, as it not only tells us almost everything we need to know about Shigaraki's character from the past, present, and the future, but there's also a peculiar quote in this chapter that could hint at the future of My Hero Academia and what quirks really are. Hey! Wise. The chapter starts off with us seeing in the All for One Vestige world, Tinko Shimura being held down by a multitude of hands. And I've come to the conclusion that these hands, or rather the entire imagery of being held down by these hands, are a representation of Shigaraki suppressing his own emotions, which is manifested as Tinko. As we see Tinko in the middle of these corpse of hands, he says to himself, friends, and immediately remembers that he asked Mikun and Tomo-chan to play with him. This feeling sparks Shigaraki to tell Mirio that he does have friends, that Mikun and Tomo-chan always said that he's a really good boy, and that Mon-chan is always looking forward to going out with him. Now, if you don't know, Mikun and Tomo-chan are characters that has not been formally introduced as far as being shown in the story, but they are important people to Shigaraki. During his flashback when Shigaraki was a child, he once had a conversation with his mother in which she asked if he wanted to become a pro hero, to which he immediately responded yes. But the most important pieces of information came as to why he wanted to become a pro hero. He mentions that these two kids, Mikun and Tomo-chan, never had any friends, and no one ever wanted to play with them. So he asked them if they would like to play with him, and they said yes. The game that they decided to play was Heroes, and Mikun thought that Tinko should be the one that played All Might, which is quite ironic being that he now hates All Might, but that's neither here nor there. But Tinko thought that he was such a nice person for playing with Mikun and Tomo-chan, even though they didn't have any friends. And that is the reason he wants to become a hero. So in looking at that in a very overly simplified way, Shigaraki, or Tinko at that time, wanted to become a hero so that he can help people and put a smile on their face, which very much sounds like Deku and All Might. And the most interesting thing about realizing this is that when we see Shigaraki scream at Mirio, telling him that Mikun and Tomo-chan says that he's a really good boy and that Mon-chan is always looking forward to going out with him, that in fact is not Shigaraki speaking, nor is it All for One speaking, and instead that is Tinko speaking. This is huge because as we see from the first panel, Tinko is still being held down by these hands. And if this is Tinko who is taking over Shigaraki's body right now to speak, that would mean that Tinko's will is so strong that it supersedes Shigaraki and All for One and temporarily took over Shigaraki's body, which can very much play as to how Shigaraki can somewhat be redeemed in the future. But I'll save that for another video. Looking completely shocked at what is going on, Mirio awkwardly apologizes as Shigaraki immediately tries to attack him with his configurated body. Now obviously there's no way Mirio is in any space of danger because he has permeation, but he does question the reaction for Shigaraki as he has no idea that he is the second person to actually communicate with Tinko through Shigaraki's body, which I guess is interesting because that could kind of symbolize that only true heroes can actually change Shigaraki for the better, and we know Lemillion is definitely one of the few true heroes in the entire story of My Hero Academia. But he mentions that he probably shouldn't have struck that nerve, probably because he doesn't want to provoke Shigaraki to go more berserk than he already is and effectively kill everyone in his surroundings, especially because Shigaraki's actual body is tougher than his configurated arms that he used to attack people, so much so that not a single attack that has gone through outside of Bakugo's attack, which scarred his face, has broken through the outermost skin layer of his body. We then go back to All for Shigaraki's experience, and I'm saying All for Shigaraki now because this is All for One speaking, or is it? This is actually the most confusing part of the chapter for me because the words that are specifically said are this: my mind. It feels as if it's splitting. This body is now complete. Even though I should have fully assimilated Shigaraki, I can still sense an anomalous element lingering, something that hasn't been fully dissolved yet. It's not Tomura, nor All for One, Shimura. Now, the reason why this is the most important part of the chapter, arguably, and the most confusing at the same time, is because the person that's talking can't be All For One if these translations are remotely correct. Because if in fact it is All For One, then All For One wouldn't need to say that it's not Tomura nor All For One, but Shimura. I mean, think about it. It already is implied that you are not the anomalous element that is lingering. So to say that you have fully assimilated Shigaraki and that this lingering feeling that you're sensing isn't Shigaraki nor is it All For One but Tenko Shimura, then wouldn't that mean that somebody else is talking and thinking right now? Somebody outside of Shigaraki and All For One and Tenko Shimura? So we have to wait for the official translation before we can actually see what this context is. Because there is a theory that I've been holding on to for a good minute, and if in fact this is consistent, then I 100% am believing that this theory will be true. But regardless, whether it's All For One or a mysterious being inside of All For One vestige, they are now the pilots inside of Shigaraki's body and decide that they shouldn't drag on this fight anymore. So they turn away from Mirio and head straight for Bakugo. And oh my gosh, this panel was amazing when I originally saw it in my reaction. Seeing Bakugo's eyes and still a little spark by his hair tells me that this is still happening within seconds of him just getting damaged a couple of seconds ago. I don't know why I said it like that. Meaning it's still very much possible for him to be in the beginning stages of awakening his quirk. Now Mirio, who obviously thought that he could make Shigaraki flinch just a little bit, immediately starts going over the original plan that he had with the other big three members. The original plan was for Nejire Hado and Tamaki Yamajiki to make the first moves, and while they keep Shigaraki busy for a little bit, Mirio will enter into the battle and get Bakugo to safety. After that, Mirio would try to stall Shigaraki for as long as he can, avoiding all damage with his permeation quirk. But being that he is significantly weaker as far as power and strength than any character that is currently there, he won't be able to stall the fight for long. So during that time, Tamaki Amajiki, aka Goat Eater, will be preparing a special treat for Shigaraki to potentially hold him back until Deku gets there. And that proposes the question, where the freak is Deku and why is he not here yet? But I guess that's for another video. We then see All For Shigaraki get ready to attack Bakugo and Best Jeanist. And I do love that Best Jeanist is trying to protect Bakugo with whatever it is that he currently has, because he has pretty much nothing. But All For Shigaraki immediately puts a damper into the confidence of Best Jeanist by telling him that it's alright and that they should take it easy. Because even though they managed to get a blow on him, which really wasn't as effective as it could have been, they're probably struggling at this point to just remain conscious. And while All For Shigaraki is saying this, Nejire Hado tries to sneak up on him, attacking him with many Nejire pikes and Nejire waves. And again, this panel was just so amazing because it's showing that Shigaraki was seemingly just walking up to Bakugo, and without even looking over at Nejire, he just holds his hand up and completely blocks every single one of Nejire's attack. But when he did look up at Nejire, he told her that them building this UA coffin specifically to prevent Shigaraki from going berserk ended up being their own caskets, and attacked Nejire with his awakened body. Now I cannot lie, Nejire in this moment looks like she's about to be Endeavor Point 2, where maybe she doesn't lose an arm, but she is definitely going to leave this battle with some severe wounds on her body. But I can say that I truly enjoy her dialogue, because it finally gives us the answer to the face that she always makes when looking at Shigaraki that she's been making ever since the Parent of a Liberation War arc. She thinks to herself that she cannot stand Shigaraki, and that he thinks he's so much better than everyone just because he was gifted with such a powerful quirk. We then go through a mini backstory of Nejire where she meets Tamaki and Mirio, and she says that in reality all she's ever wanted was to get to know everyone around her better, but every time she would try to get closer to them, they would all run away. Everyone besides two people, Tamaki Yamajiki and Mirio Togata. And because of that, Nejire says she got a chance to know everyone a lot better, which in turn allowed her to become much stronger. This is a very interesting placement to have her backstory, because even though you may not think it, it very much connects to the beginning of the chapter that focused heavily on friends. She's basically saying that similar to Shigaraki in this case, she had no friends. And in fact, just like Shigaraki, no one wanted to come close to her for some reason. But in the midst of that, there were two people in Tamaki Amajiki and Mirio Togata who actually reached out to talk to her, and they ended up being a great trio of heroes strengthening each other. This can very much hint at the revelation that Shigaraki will effectively need to learn before the end of the series, which is that when you're alone, it is connection with your truest friends that make you much stronger. And that what it means to be a hero is to protect the people who make you stronger, which subsequently are your friends. So again, this is just another reason why I love My Hero Academia, because there's so many more messages that we have not even thought about that will culminate into the most epic final battle of My Hero Academia. But in continuing, Nejire is still being attacked by Shigaraki. However, she did send one of her Nejire wave over to Tamaki Amajiki, who is currently using the true potential of his cornucopia combination. Apparently, it takes a considerable amount of time, and boy am I excited and also slightly confused at what in the world Sun Eater is actually doing right now, as it seems like he's manifesting the ultimate combination of almost everything that he has eaten in that particular day in his attempt to fight against Shigaraki 101. Now honestly, I have no idea how this combination will actually do against Shigaraki, but there are two things that I find really fascinating about this newfound awakening. First and foremost, Nejire Hado actually was able to add her energy to his cornucopia move, which makes it even more powerful than it otherwise would be. But the second thing is the slight reveal that the more Tamaki Amajiki eats, the more powerful his quirk becomes, which is a mind-blowing information reveal, because that means that there is no real limits to how much he can actually manifest with his quirk, and subsequently his strength also would increase as well. So even though I don't think that he's gonna last long with Shigaraki, it is very much possible that this new awakening or evolution of his quirk will impress us in ways that we will never be able to imagine. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribe to the channel if you are new.